Morning all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Mould. I'm one of the lecturers at Curtin University, and my team was Professor Robert O'Brien, Associate Professor Owen Carter, and Prof Phil Deller. Thanks very much to the Clinical Training Network. I really enjoyed doing it. Bit frustrated by the time constraints, and I might be using that as an excuse when I give you the results at the end and the conclusions. Okay. So, well, what we were interested in was when undergraduate student nurses who study online, can they pick out some of the important factors in immersive simulation? So we had, in the final theoretical unit of the Bachelor of Nursing, they do a simulation-based education activity, and we had 31 students who study online. And so we were interested, can they pick out things like the communication, the teamwork, and the leadership factors? What they had to do was they designed a simulation-based education activity in groups. They then did some peer reviews, and then they were sent a video clip, a short video clip, which they were asked to pick out the learning outcomes from the video. They were asked to identify debriefing issues and any support issues that might have come out of the video. So the reason why we think it's irrelevant for online education is because many of our online students live in remote areas, and they don't get as much access to the immersive stuff that people are exposed to in the metropolitan areas. And I guess that's a bit of an assumption, but that does seem to be what happens. So the other thing is that undoubtedly, when they graduate, they're going to be involved with immersive simulation throughout their lifelong learning. And if we can start to make them think about how scenario simulation is constructed and think about learning outcomes and debriefing issues, we can perhaps get them to move away from this focus on clinical skills. Because to me, university nurse education especially is just obsessed with clinical skills. And we repeat it, we repeat it, repeat it. And we seem to miss out on some of the teamwork and the communication issues. It is in its infancy online. At least the literature searches that we did, we couldn't find an awful lot of stuff around simulation-based activities which are online for undergrad student nursing. If they can identify those important issues, or the important issues that we identify, then that might have some impact when they go back to the clinical areas in the remote areas. That was kind of our background that we hoped would be a spin-off from this. So our question was, our hypothesis was, do online students improve their appreciation of the learning outcomes after designing and then observing an immersive simulation-based education activity? So it was a wee bit complicated, but I'll whip through it with the methodology. So they designed, they were given lectures, a series of lectures online, and then following those lectures, we made the assumption that they would have more of an understanding of immersive simulation. Sometimes assume makes an ass of you and me, as we say. So they designed a scenario based on a template in groups. They then sent their scenario into me, and I distributed it to another group, and they had some peer review. So what did they pick out that their peers had thought was important in an immersive simulation-based design? Could they critically appraise the clinical scenarios, and then they observed the video. And we looked at what I'm sorry, I've missed out. To start with, we sent them a questionnaire. We did a pre and post questionnaire. What did they know about simulation? And we hoped that we'd get a 100% response rate because they told us they were keen to participate. And then the whole performance was judged by a panel of simulation experts. The questions that we asked were pretty basic, we used the on-campus students as our pilot to test whether or not our questionnaire was valid. We made some adjustments to it. It was perhaps a wee bit too easy, the initial questions that we were asking. So when we got the feedback from the on-campus students, we redesigned it a bit, we tweaked it a bit, and we ended up with 12 questions. Unfortunately, it coincided with them going out on their practicums, we think, and we only got 7 completed questionnaires. We got 9 back, but one of those was a repeat by the same student, and one of the others was not completed completely. So I was absolutely gutted. Being a reasonably novice researcher, I was gutted. But the others didn't seem too worried about it, because I think they were going to blame me if it didn't work anyway. So when we got the results in, thanks. Okay, I was told that the manipulation that we did on the questionnaire probably worked because it was certainly less easy for them to do in the repeat. Again, more guttedness by John Mould because we got a non-significant improvement in the 7 that we compared, so the pre and post test we compared with. So again, a bit sad for me. And then when we looked at the repeat questionnaire, we got 24 responses, and the mean was 51.8% in the total score. So Owen Carter's pretty good at this sort of stuff. I'm not very good at this statistics, but pretty much it was they seem to take something from the activity. In our thematic analysis, they certainly seem to think about communication, and they certainly seem to think about leadership, and they certainly seem to think about how teams work. Because effective communication was stated or inferred by 28 of the 29 students. One student failed the unit and one student dropped out, which is why we ended up with 29. 15 students identified crisis resource leadership, and 6 identified crisis resource management as learning outcomes from the videos. And detecting and responding to deteriorating patients in the emergency airway management was identified by 17 and 16 students respectively. These were the themes that came out from the analysis of the video after they'd done their scenario design. And so it was quite nice that they identified 100% of them, or just under 100%, identified the communication with the registrar in our short video. And as you can see, going downwards, they identified some things around teamwork, communication, but they were also pretty, they identified how people managed airways and deteriorating patient. So our overall kind of conclusion was that they were attentive to communication and leadership, and there were some students that looked at deteriorating patient and how they would react in an emergency situation, and now I'm running out of time, but only a minority of them picked up issues such as patient-centric care, sufficient induction, and room preparation. This might all seem a bit double Dutch, by the way, because I don't have time to show you the video that I showed the students, but it's basically a deteriorating patient in an obs and gynae unit, and this patient developed epiglottitis. So some of you will be familiar with that one, and we asked the undergrads to pick up these learning outcomes from that video. We asked them if our hypothesis was, does it improve their understanding of immersive simulation-based education activity to improve quality and safety in healthcare? And it doesn't seem that we can say with a statistically significant result that it doesn't. So our hypothesis wasn't supported. But it does illustrate how immersive simulation-based education can improve communication and teamwork using online resources. We did kind of hypothesize about why they didn't pick up or didn't make such a big improvements as we'd hoped. And and that they seem to blame me, the other members of the team. They probably think that that probably we made too much of an assumption that they would understand things from the lectures and the interactive stuff that we did on campus prior to them participating in this.